free advice, I guess, we're asking you to give, but what did you do? What worked?
Yeah, so first off, I just didn't wake up one day and just say, hey, I'm gonna do this without an idea. First off, I knew I could do it because I'd spent about 3.5 years building a set of testing methodologies and predictive calculations to be able to test content at scale. So the way that looked is over the course of those 30 days, I had tested over 5,000 variations of content in real time. Now 5,000 seems like a huge number, but you can break down one piece of content and test it hundreds of different ways.
This is like A/B testing to the 15th level of alphabets.
Yeah, it's testing at scale. I mean, because I did it before. Like for example, I worked with Katie Kirk for 2.5 years, and through her, I did 220 interviews with anybody from like Joe Biden to a Chance the Rapper to DJ Khaled, and through those 220 interviews, I tested about 75,000 variations of those interviews. So it just got me into the mindset.
So, to interrupt, I apologize. When you say 75,000 variations of the interview, so you're talking to Uncle Joe, and I mean, are you just taking which slice of that interview you're going to put up? It's a 30-minute interview, say, and you're going to put these 5 minutes up? Is that what you're talking about? And this
typically on an interview, it'd be 30-minute interview.
Yeah.
Out of that 30-minute interview, we would identify between 8 to 15 clips.
Okay.
And then each of those clips we break down into variations. So like there's 5 key elements to a variation. So there's the creative itself, there's the headline, then there's the interest of the people that you're pushing it to, then you have the demographics and the geolocation. So each one's interchangeable, and what you can do is test it at scale and see which one's being shared at the highest velocity. And then narrow in on that and what's working from that. And then you can take that intelligence to fuel both your short and long-term content strategy.
So say, again, Joe Biden, he talks about things like steelworkers, right? He might talk about that in Pennsylvania. So that's going to work if you're going to target that piece to run in the steel belt, in the rust belt, Ohio, Pennsylvania, whatever. But maybe he's not talking, you're not going to use that quote or that thing to highlight for the Joe Biden interview that shows up in California or Seattle.
Yeah, you just test, you make a bunch of hypotheses, you test them in real time, see what works, and then you scale which ones do, but it's always constantly taking those learnings and applying it to the next interview or the next piece of content. And that's where we have success on, generating 1 million followers in 30 days, or, we developed it initially for Facebook, and now we've developed a completely separate system, similar methodology for Instagram, and then we're going into YouTube. But the biggest secret is really testing at scale and learning. Like most people invest all their time or effort into a single piece of content, push it out, it doesn't work, and then they're like, oh, social media doesn't work, or they just keep doing it over and over again and hoping that something will click, versus we're constantly iterating, learning, and trying to figure out what is the best way to maximize the potential of the content that we're producing and the message we want to get out.
That's a very impressive, highly resource-intensive approach, and I would think. And so when you do that, what are you finding that tends to work? I mean, you test, 75,000 tests on a piece of content. Like, what worked in your 30-day run? What was really kind of most buzzworthy, for instance?
So, first off, I think the important thing to note, especially when it comes to Facebook and Instagram, you have less than 3 seconds to capture somebody's attention, especially with video. So what we do is we extensively test the first 3 seconds constantly, and that's why you see video on those platforms have captions or meme cards built into the top, is because most people are first reaching that video with the sound off. So you need some way to capture their attention to earn the right to get 10 more seconds, 30 more seconds, 60 more seconds. So constantly testing and iterating on that and really learning what grabs people in and what grabs attention.
This is like the inverted pyramid rule of old school journalism turned into video. It's like the most important thing, the most eye-catching thing has to be there and has to be visible even if you can't hear it right off the bat or you're done.
Exactly. And initially that started out as clickbait, but the algorithms got very smart. And especially when you talk about video, it's really about watch time. So like, sure, you can capture somebody's attention in those first 3 seconds, but if you don't have the substance to support that eye-catching caption or headline, then you're gonna lose that battle and lose that war. So that's where we focus so much of our time and effort when it comes to video content. And then secondarily, it's really value-based equations. Like, how are you providing value to your audience? Are you making them laugh? Are you moving them emotionally? Are you teaching them something? Because I think so many people, when they're creating content, are thinking about the content they personally want to create instead of just thinking about the audience and what the audience wants. How is the audience going to respond to this piece of content? How is the audience going to get value out of this piece of content? And that just, it seems like a small distinction, but you'd be surprised at how many people go wrong in that. And I think, LinkedIn is probably one of the best examples of how people go wrong with content and just trying to sell stuff it's amazing. We all get those crazy telemarketer calls on our phones constantly now. And then when it comes to creating content, people do the exact same tactics as they do with the telemarketers, and just shifting the dynamic of how you're approaching that value proposition.
You mean in terms of, say, LinkedIn, and going to circle back to you on that. If I'm doing LinkedIn, I don't want to be selling all the time. I don't want to be trying to do a transaction all the time. I want to build a relationship with that follower. And then out of that may come the context within which a sale, say, could happen down the road, whatever that sale may be. Is that what I'm
it's how are you providing value to this other person? I mean, I've closed probably $20 million worth of business development deals off of LinkedIn, off cold outreach, just from positioning the message to understanding who am I targeting within the organization. Like, targeting a CEO versus a VP of marketing versus a middle manager, completely different messages, completely different goals, completely different obstacles, and just understanding who you're communicating to and crafting a message that meets them. And that applies to any social network, is really understanding your audience and how are you going to provide the most value to solve some type of pain point.
Okay, so Goldie, when you are crafting